How about now, Karen?
That's good.
Thank you.
Okay. So some of the things that researchers are looking at right now, besides NEAT, are things like hereditary factors that contribute to why some people more easily gain weight or some people more easily lose weight, hormones, stress, and how that develops causes a change in your hormones and sleep patterns. Chemical exposures are kind of the hot issue right now, and how that may contribute to weight gain or weight loss. Eating plastics and that sort of thing that are in all of our foods. And and then the really hot item right now that everybody's looking at is whether eating ultra processed foods is contributing to the obesity epidemic that's happening in the United States, but all over the world. So this little NEAT theory is one little portion, but I think it has value because it really, I think, allows us to start moving a little bit more, which there's no question that that's helpful. So we're going to be talking about NEAT today, but it's not the only theory that has to do with weight loss and weight gain. And we're going to talk about why NEAT is important and what you can do to increase your NEAT. That's not going anywhere. So there was just kind of an overview. There was a study done in 2000 by the World Health Organization, and they studied individuals all over the world. And overall, for two individuals of similar size and sex, the calories they burn can vary by as much as 2,000 kilocalories a day. And they found that the basal metabolic rate, or how many calories we're burning just to, keep our organs working and to just keep our brain working and those kinds of things, doesn't vary that much between people. And how many calories we burn when we eat food varies a little bit. Of course, if we eat more food, we're going to have more of a thermic effect of food, but that doesn't cause that big of a difference, really. And so thus they determined that activity thermogenesis, or how many calories we burn when we're active, can vary between individuals. And they found, when they measured people, approximately 2,000 calories a day difference based on activity level. That's a huge difference, isn't it? 2,000 calories a day. Surprising. So what determines, just some general science, what determines whether we gain weight, lose weight, or stay the same? And basically it comes down to two main categories: what we eat or take in, the amount of calories we take in, and then the amount of calories that we burn. And I'm going to break down what we burn a little bit more, but when energy intake, or the calories consumed, equals energy expenditure, how much we burn up, we're in a state of energy balance. So our weight remains stable. But if we take in more calories and burn less, then we're going to gain weight. And if we burn more calories, then we lose weight. That's kind of a general guideline. Of course, there's a number of other things that come into play that I talked about earlier, like hormones and that sort of thing. But in general, that's the theory, and it kind of rings true with all the other theories. This is kind of the underlying concept. So I'm breaking down a little bit the whole part about the calories that we burn each day. So the calories that we burn each day are kind of broken into three different pieces. The resting metabolic rate, which is that first 60% right up there. So 60% of the calories we burn have to do with our resting metabolic rate. And that's what we need for maintaining our system, keeping our muscles working, all of our organs, those sorts of things. And it doesn't vary much between individuals. But of course, if we're heavier, then we've got, fat that we're carrying around, and that makes us have a higher metabolic rate. And then 10% of our calories that we burn up come from diet-induced thermogenesis, which has to do with how many calories we burn just from eating. So every time we eat, our metabolic rate kicks up a little bit in order to digest food and absorb food. So there's a little bit of diet-induced thermogenesis that we all have. But that's a small amount. It's only 10%. So don't be thinking, well, I'm just going to eat more. It's very small. You were thinking, I know. And then 30% is the physical activity expenditure. And, you know, lots of times when we think of physical activity, we're thinking about, well, I go to the gym and I walk on the treadmill 30 minutes and that's my exercise. But this whole idea with NEAT is that, yes, there's that. And yes, that is important. But studies have shown, and this Dr. Levine that did all these studies, is that probably a more important part of that physical activity expenditure is not your structured exercise that you do every day, but it's the unstructured exercise. It's whether or not, you know, you're knitting when you're watching television. It's whether or not, like, I use my hands, you know. So imagine if I never moved my hands all day, there'd be a difference in my caloric expenditure, wouldn't there, if I never used my hands? And some of us don't use our hands. It's almost like a genetic predisposition to whether we use our hands. You know, families, you see lots of families where everybody uses their hands all the time, and some families where everybody just, you know, sits quietly. So there is a genetic predisposition to all that. So the part that I'm going to talk about today, because studies have shown it's the important part in terms of weight loss. This other part where you're coming here and you're doing your cardiovascular workout, of course, that's hugely important for preventing cardiovascular risk, preventing heart attack and stroke. But in terms of weight loss, this other part, this NEAT part, may be more important for you to focus on and think about. So what is NEAT? Non-exercise activity thermogenesis, big word. It's the energy that you expend going about your day. It's not talking about, you know, the eating thermogenesis. It's not talking about, you know, how many calories you're burning when you're sleeping. It's not talking about when you come here and you do your 30 minutes on the treadmill. It's all the other kind of movement that you're doing throughout the day. NEAT has an important role in how many calories we expend or burn up. The energy we expend for everything we do that is not eating, sleeping, or doing a structured workout or sports type activity. So it's things like walking from the car to the store, activities of daily living like showering, getting dressed, brushing our teeth, yard work, housework, standing instead of sitting, fidgeting, and hobbies. How has NEAT changed in the last 50 years?
We don't walk the machine.
Yeah, we've got, oh my gosh, how has it changed in the last year even? It's changing quickly. Yeah, I like this picture because it just shows the difference. I mean, everybody was riding their bikes around, you know, 100 years ago, everywhere, because it was safe and you could do it, right? There weren't cars on the road. So what has changed is that we have less physically demanding work. And in the last, you know, 4 or 5 years, everybody's working from home now. So, you know, you don't even have to sit in your chair in the morning. You don't have to get out until, you know, 5 o'clock rolls around. Right. What?
You don't have to get dressed.
You don't have to get dressed. That's right. You don't have to shower. Just lay there. I mean, imagine the difference in NEAT just from working at home, you know, it's huge. So less physically demanding work though. Everything, almost any job you can think of has been mechanized to some degree or made easier by innovation that we have, almost everything. I still see my mailman and mailwoman, you know, coming and putting the mail in the slot, but they're driving around. And my mailman, when I was younger, used to walk like, you know, probably 10 miles a day, right? Now everything is centrally located. So they've got like 20 slots for a street. And so they don't even have to walk as much. So what are some things that have changed that you can think of over your lifetime in terms of like housework or physical work, those kind of things? What can you think of that's changed?
The vacuum cleaner go by itself.
Yeah, the Roomba. We have a Roomba now, right?
You don't have to get up to change the TV channel.
And even if you don't have a Roomba, they have vacuums now that are battery powered, so you don't have to constantly bend over, unplug it, move it to the new room, plug it in again, right? All of that. I mean, just a vacuuming session, we probably burn 50 calories less nowadays just from not having to plug and unplug and trip over the cord and yell at the vacuum and all those things that we used to do, right? What else? Somebody else had their hand raised. Right. Well, that's really lowering your NEAT, but you're contributing to somebody else's NEAT. somebody else had an idea for something that's changed, that lawn mowing, right, used to be a push,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, they're riding now. Gardeners use
that's
riding
just,
mowers now.
right,
And you just hire some.
right, everybody just hires somebody. Other things you can think of?
My kids all grew up and moved out. My husband left me. And it's just me, and now I depend on my children,
Yeah,
and I just sit there and they wait on me.
right, you used to do more for others, right, and that happens as we get older, doesn't it? And studies have shown, actually, Americans spend 40% of their time sitting in a chair, 40% of our time, and that increases with age, but not for us. The recliner, yeah. All the time you used to spend cooking and chopping food. I mean, I don't want to admit it, but if I'm making something sometimes like that has onions in it, I buy the already chopped onions. I'm not like Debbie Lucas. No, but just little things like that, huge, yes, huge difference.
Going to the drive-through change.
The drive-through, you don't have to even get out of your car, and you don't even have to roll down your window in the drive-through. You just press that little button, you know, on your car. We used to have to roll down our windows. Now we just press the buttons. And imagine over a lifetime, the difference in calories that you're burning from not having to roll down your car window.
You know, I used to see people pass in front of my house, riding their bikes, going to exercise on their bikes. They've got electric bikes now.
Yes.
Oh, no more
I
pedals.
know.
No more pedals. Electric scooters.
Electric scooters, electric bikes, even our exercise equipment, we've made it so that we don't have to actually exert ourselves. It's just so sad.
We're not lazy. We're innovative.
All right, so I think I've got a few things written down here. Let me see. I'm having a hard time. So washing and drying clothes. When I was little, we moved a lot, and we lived in this one house where my mother actually had a scrubbing board,
Yeah,
and she cleaned the clothes with a scrubbing board. Then she put them through this thing that took the water out,
ringer.
a wringer, right? And then she she carried them all out and hung them on the clothesline,
And hang them up on the line.
right? And then brought them in,
And
and then
iron
owned them. I'm just burning meat thinking about it. There was that, yes, that's the thing. There were, and I'll show you a slide on that. But taking out garbage cans, I know that my garbage can
There. This ringer.
Okay, can you hear now, Karen?
Yes, and we have the picture back.
okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, so this Dr. Levine, who originally did the studies on NEAT, one of his first studies was looking at posture, how much people were sitting and standing. He took 20 healthy volunteers, 10 were lean, 10 were mildly obese. He collected data for 10 days. He was from the Mayo Clinic, and he was fanatical with his methods and the way that he did things. And these people wore these posture and motion sensing body devices. using inclinometers and triaxial accelerometers. So basically whether you're sitting or standing to capture data on your body position 120 times each minute. So people, they were pretty big things that they wore too. They weren't attractive. Participants during the study did not increase the amount of structured exercise from what they normally would do. And he found that the mildly obese individuals were seated and moved less than their leaner counterparts, on average 2 hours longer per day. People that were mildly obese sat, so 2 more hours a day. That adds up to quite a few calories over a year, doesn't it? Yeah, so be aware of how much, we're sitting, especially as we get older. When he put them for a few days on a mild calorie restriction, and individuals that were mildly obese lost a little weight, and the amount that they sit and stood during that time did not change. Mildly obese individuals expended or burned 350 kilocalories less per day through meat. So quite a few calories that adds up to. Then he did this other study, and he studied whether or not some people were more resistant to gaining weight when overeating, which is what we kind of feel. We see some people, it seems like they eat a lot and they're super thin, and it doesn't seem fair, and we wonder what's going on. So he studied that. He studied 16 non-obese. These were people that were not obese or overweight volunteers. He overfed them 1,000 kilocalories in excess of their weight. First, they was all in a controlled environment where I think they lived there for part of the time. And he had them swallow these pills that measured how much energy they were consuming. And also it traced the amount of calories that they were eating. And then they wore these body motion sensing devices. So he knew how much NEAT they were doing. And so first he determined how much it took to maintain their weight, how many calories. And then once he did that, then he overfed them 1,000 kilocalories extra per day for 8 weeks. He did not allow them to increase their structured exercise amount. Measures of body composition using a scanner, and energy expenditure using this labeled water, which they can measure the CO2 that you're putting out, which is a measure of how much energy you're expending, before and after 8 weeks of the overfeeding. And he measured the NEAT using these accelerometers and these posture things. What he found was that when he overfed everybody, so he overfed all 16, and that the amount of fat gain varied tenfold among the volunteers. So some people only gained 0.7 pounds, and some people gained 9 pounds. Huge difference, right? And that was over an 8-week period. Changes in the BMR, so the basic metabolic rate, so how much we're burning when we're just sitting or sleeping and not doing much, did not account for, there wasn't enough variation in that to account for this fat gain. And the individual differences in how much energy you're burning from eating food did not correlate with the fat gain. So it's not because people were eating more and they had more thermogenesis, that's not why they were burning more calories. I just wanted to, before I go on to this next part, I want to read you some of the things that he did. This is at the Mayo Clinic, to let you know how fanatical he was about the methods for this. Volunteers were instructed not to adopt a new exercise practice and were questioned daily regarding their activities. In addition, volunteers' family and friends, so each of them had to have like 4 people that they were involved in the study with them, underwent structured interviews before and after the feeding to determine compliance of the person who was in the study. So they checked up on them basically with family and friends to make sure that they weren't really exercising more or exercising less. To ensure compliance with the feeding regime, they gave them the food to eat, and they weren't allowed to eat their own food. So to ensure compliance with the food items, the food containers were inspected. On occasion, volunteers' home garbage was checked. Yes, yeah. Family members, friends, and work colleagues of the volunteers were identified and contacted on several occasions to ensure that all food was consumed and that exercise was beyond what they had originally done was not initiated. Then they did all these scans that I told you about. BMR was measured on 2 consecutive mornings at the same time, 6:30 in the morning, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so it was very, very fanatical. It was very, very well done study is what I'm trying to say. So what he found is that their exercise, so some people gain, 0.7 pounds, some people gain 9 pounds, right? What caused that? Well, they knew exactly what they were eating. So, and they knew exactly how much they were exercising because they weren't allowed to increase their exercise. So their exercise, their structured exercise did not change. So why did some people only gain 0.7 pounds and some people gain 9 pounds? Well, he found that out by looking at the accelerometers and these inclinometers, these body posturing and telling how much you're moving, body monitors.
BMI to start with.
And the BMI, yeah, the BMI was controlled and the BMI changed a little bit, but it wasn't significant.
There were people with normal BMI, not people that, I get it.
Right, everybody, yeah, kind of had a basic normal BMI. They were all non-obese individuals. Yeah, these were all normal weight.
Did they allow smoking?
Oh, that's a good question. He didn't talk about smoking, but that wouldn't have been allowed to change. I bet he wouldn't have allowed smoking because that does affect your metabolic rate. And you'd have to then monitor. If he allowed smoking, he would have talked about it because you would have had to smoke the same amount and not change it. So I don't think he did, because that does increase your metabolic rate. So if the amount of that they were eating, everybody was overfed by 1,000 calories a day, but some people gained 0.7 and some people gained 9 pounds, and their exercise, their structured exercise didn't change. Well, what changed? What's left? When they measured it? Well, the things that they measured, like the basal metabolic rate, that was done at 6:30 in the morning, every single time. And then the tracers were done. That's a 24-hour a day thing. So that didn't change. So I'm going to go back and look at
You talk about sleep.
and sleep. Yes, they were all sleeping the same amount of time.
Would they offer Minnesota?
They may have been. I forget where he did this study.
Coffee.
Yeah, that didn't change because he gave them the food.
Yeah.
I mean, that didn't change for sure. And they weren't cooking because they were given the food. So if you look at what makes up the total calories we burn over there, basal metabolic rate didn't change significantly. The thermic effect didn't, I mean, it went up for a little bit for everybody because they were all eating more, but that wasn't different between individuals. And the structured exercise didn't change. So what's left? Neat. All that's left is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, how much they were moving throughout the day. So
And weather does have something to do with that. As
how much we move?
Yes. So it takes, when
Yes.
it's cold
Yes,
out,
we're moving
yeah,
more. Yeah.
we're moving more to stay warm. And
We're tossing and turning in bed. Some people go tossing and turning.
Right. If it's hot in bed, we kind of tend to move more. But he measured them. Yes. So that would have been, if you're tossing and turning in bed and you're awake kind of doing it, that would have been considered NEAT activity. Yeah. So NEAT proved to be the principal mediator of resistance to fat gain with overfeeding. The average increase in NEAT was 336 kilocalories a day. 336 people, it just increased their NEAT. And they didn't know what he was studying. It's not like they knew that he was studying that. And so then they went around and started, moving. The range of NEAT in the volunteers was large. So some people had less NEAT, by 98 kilocalories a day. They moved less when the overfeeding. And some people burned almost 700 extra kilocalories a day from NEAT, from just moving more. Thus, activation of NEAT can explain the variability in fat gain with overeating. As humans overeat, those with effective activation of NEAT. So we're all different, aren't we? So some of us just like I'm a bit of a fidgeter. And what he found is that people, without even knowing what he was studying, some people just really started moving more, and therefore they didn't gain any weight. And they didn't know what they were doing. It was kind of a genetic, it's what their ancestors did and what was being carried forward. So as you know, some of us, well, I'll talk about this in the next slide. So some of us were here because our ancestors were good at storing fat, right? In a famine, we all were here because they were good in a famine. And some of us are here because our ancestors were good at running and they were able to escape being chased down by a tiger, right? So we all have a different genetic makeup. We all have a different way that we store fat and that we absorb food. So yeah.
There was a time when women were considered beautiful when they were hefty. What do they call it?
Voluptuous.
Yeah, voluptuous.
Yes.
Is they're good wives and motherly because they had the ability
Yeah.
to be mothers and
Mhm.
wait on children and strong women.
Yeah.
And the men were attracted to them.
Uh-huh.
And some of the old paintings show these voluptuous women.
Yeah, Rubenesque it's
And they were
called, right?
sitting around, and they weren't smoking and drinking, but they were surrounded by.
Yes. And so, yeah, so we throughout, there's more obesity now, but there's always been certain people that just are able to store fat better. I mean, there's no question. We've seen it throughout history. So in this study, those with lesser degrees of NEAT activation will likely have greater fat gain and be predisposed to develop obesity. The maximum increase in NEAT that we detected was 692 kilocalories a day in volunteer number 5. And in that study, they found that person increased their strolling activity by about 15 minutes an hour during the waking hours. So I've talked about this, there's a mismatch between our evolutionary adaptations and our current environment. We were built to move more, and now in this society, we're just not moving very much. And we're built to store fat too. And some of us were built to store more fat than others, depending on our heredity.
Are you saying there's a fat gene?
It's not, there probably is maybe more than one fat gene. There's so many things that come into play. And the fat gene could just be that you have certain hormones that make you more predisposed to holding on to fat, or that you are predisposed to move more, like what I'm talking about today. There's all sorts of things. It's probably not just one gene. That's why there's so many people studying so many different things that have to do with weight gain and weight loss. But the obesity rates keep going up. According to the National Institute of Health, the obesity rates have tripled over the last 60 years, tripled. And severe obesity, which is known also as morbid obesity, has risen tenfold. So you can see in 1990, in the United States, it's mostly blue there, either light blue or dark blue. And that means that less than 10% of the people had a BMI of greater than or equal to 30. So less than 10% of the people were obese back in 1990. And that wasn't that long ago, 1990. It's really just happened recently. It's so interesting. And then you can see in 1999, 15 to 19% of people in the majority of the country were considered obese. And then in 2009, more like 25 to 30% of people. And it just keeps going up.
I think retirement has a lot to do with it too. People are retiring now at 55, and
you end up sitting more.
Yes, and going to ball games and eating those great big hamburgers and things and sitting around TV.
Yes, and of course, what we eat, I'm not discounting that. That has a huge impact. But today we're just talking about this NEAT study. So most current obesity rates from 2022 from the CDC, currently nearly 70% of adults in the US are either overweight or obese. It's just shocking kind of, but California, we're doing better than the rest of the country. California, New York, Vermont, and Connecticut. And Colorado. Colorado is doing better than California. And then there was a separate study done by a different researcher looking at just at NEAT and not weight loss or weight gain, but how much people moved not structured exercise where you do walking on the treadmill, which we know decreases your chance of dying, but they just looked at NEAT to see if just moving more in general decreased your chance of dying in older adults. This study was done on 323 participants in an older adult community, age 70 to 82 years old. Their free living activity energy expenditure was assessed over a 2-week period using this doubly labeled water. Resting metabolic was measured. They were followed for 6.15 years after the study was done to see if they lived or died. And they found that their daily energy expenditure during the study predicted their risk of being alive or dead about 7 to 10 years later. So how many calories you're consuming during the day. He adjusted for all, age, sex, race, study site, weight, height, percentage of body fat, sleep duration, self-rated health, education, prevalent health conditions, and smoking behavior. And for every 287 NEAT calories a person burned a day, so they moved just doing their activities of daily living 287 calories more, there was about a 30% lower chance of dying. And those who were less likely to die didn't do more structured type of exercise than others. They just had more NEAT. So just moving is helpful. Estimated that individuals who perform 1.25 hours of NEAT activity per day will expend about 287 calories. So how can we increase our NEAT? Think of just start thinking about yourself. How could you add some lower effort movements over the course of a day? And these are some ideas I put down here: taking the stairs. This is a good one, standing or pacing when you're talking on the phone, because we all talk on our phones a lot. So we want to choose something that's going to increase our NEAT that we can do throughout the day. It can become an automatic behavior and become a habit, and it's easy to do. So if we were to stand up every time we talked on our phone and just kind of, walk around while we're talking, that can add up to a huge amount of calories a day, right? And it's something we're already doing. We're already talking on our phone. We're just making it so that we burn more NEAT. Parking the car further out in the parking lot. I know it's hard sometimes when we're in a hurry, but honestly, I think it's faster to park way out in the parking lot because you're not sitting and waiting for somebody to pull out. You're not in a busy part of the parking lot where everybody's all jammed up.
Yeah.
Just automatically, if you're able to, if you don't have orthopedic problems that are limiting you from doing that, that's a nice one to do. Moving during TV commercials. So,
Yeah.
or I mean, it could be that I'm sorry, Sharon, but I'm not moving. I've been moving all day, and this is my time when I am not going to be stressing about anything. So if that's the case, maybe decide for just a half an hour. If you watch television 2 hours a night, maybe decide for the first half an hour, you're going to move at every commercial or at every break in your Netflix show or whatever it is. You're going to either sit there and move your feet. You're going to do some shoulder presses. You're going to get up and get some water. You're not going to get up and get any popcorn. No. So anyway, that's one. This is something that works for me. I don't really like to cook. And so whenever I'm cooking in the kitchen, I put on music because it causes me to kind of dance around and sing. And you burn more calories when you have music on. Use Post-it notes by your computer or in your car to remind you to move a little bit. So remind you to, like when you're driving, just to fidget a little bit with your fingers on the steering wheel, turn your head. If you're on the computer, to do, move your head around which is good for your upper back anyway. Dr. Levine, who did all these NEAT studies, tested how many calories you can burn by chewing gum, and he found that you burn 11 extra calories an hour of NEAT activities, just chewing gum. Probably the same with a sugar-free lozenge or something like that. Bobbing your leg up and down. I'm going to tell the meringue pie story. I took my family and we went to Stinson Beach for a vacation, and my kids had all wanted to have a meringue pie when we were there. So I brought all the stuff, and it was a fully, what's it called? Fully stocked kitchen, fully stocked kitchen. So I brought all this stuff to make the meringue pie, except I didn't bring an electric beater because I assumed that they would have a hand mixer, right? But they didn't. And so it was fine when it came to the custard, but the lemon meringue, how many of you ever made, you need an electric mixer. And I said, well, I bet you we could, if we tried really hard, I bet you if we all took turns beating the meringue, we could get it to harden and fluff. And it took about an hour and a half.
Oh.
And we were exhausted and everybody was complaining, but it worked. And man, we burned a lot of calories because you just had to, you had to whip it, but yeah, so that was a major neat activity. And some people now are looking at redesigning school and work environments in order to make them standing desks, walking on the treadmill type desks, where you have to just move more in order to just do your work, because it's just become apparent that we're all just moving less and less and we're sitting at the computer more and more. Any ideas you guys have to increase your needs?
The clothesline. My son
Yes.
built me two clotheslines.
Yeah, that's great. Plus the clothes smell better.
You hear what Rico said?
No, what?
About that?
Yes, that's a neat activity in both ways. Sex.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, that's not a structured activity.
That's right.
Just say while you're waiting for the microwave, you wait for something to heat up.
Yes, just walk around the kitchen or pace a little bit. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, especially if you're using the like I use the microwave in the morning to make my oatmeal. I definitely use it at dinner to heat something up in some way or another. So yeah, so just if you use the microwave even a couple times a day, that could be a time when you just walk around more.
Pickleball is in now.
Pickleball, that's kind of good. If you're using that as your structured activity, that's
Not me.
considered,
My friends are doing it.
yeah. It is, pickleball is getting people moving more. Any other ideas for neat?
Dancing
Dancing, yes.
every Friday and Tuesday, Mission Oaks.
Or dancing around your kitchen or,
Maybe watering plants.
yes, watering your plants because it keeps them from dying also.
I think because my mom, when she left, she set up some drips for all the plants around the backyard.
Yes.
If you actually walk around having to go water everything,
Yes,
it takes a little bit of time.
it does. And you have to, yes. You have to deal with that hose that gets in a knot and all that stuff. Raking leaves. We can't do that, all year long, but yes. So think about your daily life and the things that you already do and how you could integrate some neat into that. That's the only way it's going to work. If you say, well, I'm going to increase my neat by raking leaves, that's only going to work sometimes as part of the year and only on the days when you actually have time to rake your leaves. So thinking of something that you're already doing and how when you're doing that activity, you could add some neat to it. Yes. Yes, yes. 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 And put a little, Post-it note on your remote to remind you that you're going to do that, because when we're trying to do a new behavior, one of the main reasons we don't do it is because we don't remember to do it. So you got to put a reminder there when you first start trying to do something new.
I was just gonna say, you can get kind of two things out of some of you chewing gum. It's like xylitol gum.
Uh-huh.
That's what we get.
Oh, because it causes GI problems?
Well, no, it doesn't cause the eye problems. If you put it with xylitol.
Yeah.
It's better, less cavities, just far better for your.
Oh, for your teeth. Yes.
for your teeth.
Yes. Yeah, you get two things.
I think that our governor has made it mandatory thing that the state workers go into the office 4 days a week.
Yes.
Be interesting to see if some of them are losing weight.
Right. Some of the weight that they've gained. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, if you're having to drive into work right now, you're also doing a lot of neat because you're shaking your fist at everybody who's driving right here. All right, I did this whole little calculation here. What increasing your need could look like. So without extra need, this is a typical person. I think I did a 60-year-old female. I can't remember. I did this a couple weeks ago. Basic metabolic rate, how many calories you're just burning to maintain your organs and life is 1,400 calories a day. The amount that you're burning just from eating to absorb the food is 150 kilocalories a day. Structured exercise, say you go for a 30-minute brisk walk, 200 calories a day. So that adds up to 750 kilocalories a day. So then let's look at this with some extra NEAT added on. So you've still got the 1,750 calories a day, which is the basic metabolic rate, the diet, thermogenesis, the structured exercise. Then all the things that are italicized are the NEAT. Stand up and pace when talking on the phone, that's an extra 100 calories a day. Fidget or walk during TV commercials, two hours of TV is 68 calories. Washing your own car once a month, 159 calories. Chewing gum 2 hours a day, 22 calories. Taking stairs up and down at the cardiovascular wellness program, 40 calories a day. And so then I added it up, and for the stairs at the cardiovascular wellness program, I figured you did that 3 times a week. So I added up what that is a day, and then over a year, how many extra calories. And what it adds up to with the NEAT, an extra 77,498 calories. Isn't that amazing? And that equals a 22-pound weight loss in 1 year, just from doing NEAT. Now, this was a lot of NEAT, moving during 2 hours of TV, that's a big commitment. But even if you made a small difference, small changes make a big difference. Taking the stairs at the cardiovascular wellness program 2 times a week, that's an extra 4,160 calories a year. So that's a little over a pound weight loss just from taking the stairs here 2 times a week when you come up and down. Fidgeting during commercials while watching 2 hours of TV on 5 nights a week equals an extra 16,320 calories a year. So if you did both of those things, if you fidgeted during TV commercials and you took the stairs twice a week at the cardiovascular wellness program and you didn't change any other NEAT, that's a 6-pound weight loss in a year.
What do you think about keeping a little indoor bike by your TV?
Yes, excellent. One of those little, you just pedal, and just doing it during commercials even, or when there's a break or when you're bored with what you're watching. Excellent. And taking up a hobby that you can do during TV, like knitting, knitting is fidgeting. So become a little neat yourself. Little by little, a little becomes a lot, doesn't it? Make a plan for something you will do to increase your NEAT. And I put down some ideas here: walking after dinner, taking the stairs, park a distance away from where you're going, moving during TV commercials, taking up a hobby, not just that you can do when you're watching TV, but sometimes we tend to move less because as we get older, we just don't have as much to do. So, but if you have something, like if you like to do something in the garage, like woodworking or building something, you're going to end up, instead of sitting in a chair, you're going to end it up, or you like to paint, you're going to end up going and doing that hobby for a little bit each day, aren't you? So if you don't have a hobby going, think of a hobby that you could start doing, because just doing that, if you just did that and you didn't increase any other NEAT, you're going to increase the calories that you burn.
Go next door and get the neighbor out of bed and go for a walk.
Yes.
Does reading burn any calories?
I'd have to, yes, it does. Of course it does. Because eye movement, and you're moving around. You're not just, you're moving around, you're turning the pages. Probably a little bit. We'd have to look it up and see what it is. But you could make something for reading a book even. You could say, well, every chapter that I finish, I'm going to stand up and march in place for 30 seconds or something. Whatever you want to do.
Get a dog.
Dogs definitely increase your NEAT. And so do cats, because you got to clean up the litter box and you got to feed them, pet them. Animals definitely increase our NEAT.
Need care.
This is Dr. Levin's book called Move a Little, Lose a Lot. you're interested in learning more about that. And any questions or comments? Let's move, yeah. Let's all move right now. A little push up to the, here we go. Woo, woo. Clapping, and thank you for coming, everybody.
Any questions in Zoom land before we go away?
Thank you. It was really, really helpful.
Good, I hope it was inspiring just to think small. Just think of one thing today even that you can do to increase your NEAT and just start with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, go be neat. I know you're all neat people, but go be a little more neat
We'll have to come here more often.
to be neat. Yeah.
That'll be neat. That takes energy.
Wanna-
Oh,